Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here from all over the world to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient. Been dealing with cancer since 2021. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at the video I posted about my life-changing month, that's posted up on YouTube and Rumble. So please take a look at that. And if you like it, subscribe to the channel, make a comment, and that would be truly appreciated. I am so excited because I have a very, very special guest, Mitch Marczewski, who he is the brother of America's Got Talent's Nightbirde, and he'll talk about that. I had the opportunity and the blessing to meet Mitch in person in Scranton, Pennsylvania at Tim Sohn's Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer live event. And I was so blessed because I was the keynote speaker, the first speaker, and then Mitch was the last speaker and did an absolutely sensational job, just an amazing job. And I'm so happy to be with Mitch today. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Mitch. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little about you.
Yeah, thanks. It's so good to be here. That event in person up in Scranton was a lot of fun. And if any of you have the opportunity to go, it's a great time. Tim puts on a good event, and it was just like a good time to connect with people that, were walking through their own journeys or have walked through their own journeys. And just the perspectives that I walked away with there were great, but the friendships were even better. So it's worth going just for that. My name is
agree.
Sure. My name is Mitch Marczewski. I'm with the Nightbirde Foundation, and Nightbirde Foundation is a 501c3 that we set up just after my little sister Jane, Nightbirde from America's Got Talent, after she passed away in 2022 of breast cancer at the age of 31. So what we do at the Nightbirde Foundation is we help bring hope and healing to women that are battling breast cancer. Primarily, we do this through our Gifts of Hope, which we distribute to women that are battling through this horrible situation that they found themselves in. Oftentimes, these people don't have hope. They don't have encouragement. They don't have people around them. So we send Gifts of Hope to them, and then we also give grants to young women that are going through breast cancer to help cover some of the expenses that come along with treatments that are outside of standard of care. Because there are a lot of people out there that want to be able to supplement their chemotherapy or their traditional care with some other immunotherapies, and those things are typically not covered by insurance. So we come alongside young women that are similar to Jane in that way to be able to help them navigate that situation for them. So that's what we do, and yeah, I'm just excited to be here and talk a little bit about Jane's story and what the Nightbirde Foundation does.
Oh, I could talk about Jane's story for hours and hours and hours and for days and days and days. And it's such a pleasure to hear her story again, because I never get tired of it. Because if you could share with us how she came into the public light and how all that happened.
Yeah, so obviously America's Got Talent was sort of the linchpin for that, bringing her sort of onto a global scale with her performance and really touching Simon Cowell's heart as he was going through, as he watched her perform. And it wasn't just her song, which that really struck the judges on America's Got Talent. I think it was just her mindset and her attitude and her ability to be able to look cancer in the face and say, 2% is not 0%, and that she's so much more than the bad things that have happened to her. And, that mindset and that attitude and that hope that she had really drove, I think, America to love her, and really the world to be enamored by her, because there are so many people out there that are sitting in chemo chairs and treatment centers, and they're sitting at home by themselves. They might be on hospice. They might have just gotten a diagnosis, and they're starving for hope. They're starving for something to look forward to trust in, to be able to put their lives towards. And I think Jane gave them just a little bit of a window into what it would look like if they did have hope.
You know, we had spoken before the interview started, and I had asked you when that show came on, and you had said June of 2021. And that actually coincides with my cancer journey as well, because back in June of 2021, I was really, really sick. And that's when my daughter Lisa came and stayed with me for 2.5 months and helped me get back on my feet and get situated and help me start this channel here. And when I saw that video, of which I looked this morning, that particular video, her audition video for America's Got Talent, has over 65 million views, which is, I think it's the highest viewed audition of all time, isn't it?
I honestly, I don't know, but 65 million is a heck of a lot of views.
Yes, it is.
Either way.
Yes. I was like, I looked at it this morning, I thought, wow, that's incredible. And I watch it fairly regularly because it just brings me back, and it inspires me, and it helps me to remember where I was at that time, because I was stuck in my room. I could barely walk. And she gave me hope. And you know, I had mentioned to you that I had tried to reach out to her, but I'm sure she had, you know, hundreds of millions of people reaching out to her at the same time. And so I would have liked to have connected with her, and learn more about her, and you know, we could have, who knows what could have happened. But I am so happy that I have met you, and I've heard her story through you, as well as your own story, and hear about your family. And so, yeah, tell us a little bit about you and your family, and where you're at and in life.
Yeah, so we live just outside of Columbus, Ohio. I'm a family of 6. I have 4 beautiful children, 2 boys, 2 girls. And yeah, I never really would have thought that I would be running a nonprofit at this stage of my life at 34. You know, I really thought that I was, you know, I mean, my background is really all over the place. I worked in politics for a long time. I was on staff at a church for a while. I worked retail. I worked all over the place. So the Lord definitely, you know, my life has really been full of things that have prepared me for the moment that I'm in, I suppose. Even though I never thought that I'd be here. But running the Nightbirde Foundation is not, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work in the sense that there's just only one of me and lots of things to do. And that list is endless. So being able to learn how to prioritize and execute and get the things done that I need to get done while still taking care of my family has been a fun challenge. But, you know, at the end of the day, what drives me is just the hope that we get to bring to people that don't have it, you know. And in our situation, you know, as a family, we've sat in chemo chairs and treatment centers, and we've looked around and have seen the women that are sitting in there that are really downtrodden and hopeless, and they don't have a family to support them, and they don't have the ability to be able to see past the circumstances that are seemingly just caving in around them. And, you know, every gift of hope that we send out to those women, I think has a potential to turn the tide in their life, to be able to have them, give them something to be able to grab a hold of, and to be able to transform the way that they're viewing their cancer. And even if they don't make it, you know, just the change in mindset is enough to be able to allow those last days to be really joyful ones and rich ones and full ones, as opposed to ones full of pain and anguish and frustration.
Hope is so important. If you don't have hope, you don't have anything. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, hope is the starting point in order to get to where you need to get in order to get better, in order to live a fuller life. You have to have hope, and what you're doing by providing the hope is absolutely fantastic. Can you please talk about the book that, well, let's talk more about, for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to put a link to the video in the description as well as in the comment section. Let's talk about Jane's journey with AGT and what happened with that, because it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Oh man, Jane's journey and AGT and all the things. It's just difficult to, yeah, it's even difficult to know where to start, because there's so, like you said, we could talk about this for hours. So sort of the timeline of Jane's, Jane's last handful of years here with us in this earth is, she was diagnosed with breast cancer in her late 20s. She was 27, 28, somewhere in that ballpark. It was around her birthday and when she got that diagnosis. So she went through all the standard procedures and all the standard treatments, had the double mastectomy, had the chemo, had the radiation, went through it all. And she, diagnosed cancer-free, all of that. And then late 2019, early 2020, she was given 6 months to live. And, the doctors were saying, hey, you can do chemo and you can die in 6 months, or you can not do chemo and you can die in 6 months, like pick your poison kind of thing. So, kind of a Hail Mary effort for us, we found a clinic in Southern California that we really felt like would give her the best shot at life. And so in 2020, we flew her out to Southern California. We got her settled in. And then, she went through a set of integrative treatments, still with traditional chemotherapies, just augmented a little bit and targeted for her specifically, alongside of, some immunotherapies and things of that nature. And in 10 weeks, she was cancer-free, in the sense that there's no evidence of disease. Cancer-free is not really the term that you can use. But we, in that process, we really learned a lot about not only just ourselves, but just like the fact that there's a whole nother world out there of treatments and diets, and the ability for us to be able to combat cancer without just completely destroying your body, literally destroying it with chemo, and hoping that your body's strong enough to hold on till the end. And so those treatments that she went through, like, they bought her an extra 2.5 years of life, from 2020, when we thought she was going to die right away. She passed away in 2022 at the age of 31. And that whole process, was just amazing, in the sense that, it allowed her to be well enough to be able to perform on America's Got Talent in June of 21.
So what prompted her auditioning for America's Got Talent?
You know what? There are, like, I really wish I could ask Jane again about this, because there are varying stories that are floating around in the family circles. It was either she reached out or they reached out to her. I can't remember which. I think she reached. You know what? I hear differing stories on like who emailed first, but I know that she started being in contact with America's Got Talent in some way, shape, or form, and at the beginning of 21, and so she was chatting back and forth, and then eventually they asked her to come in and actually do an audition and go in and be a part of that. And I don't think anybody thought that audition was going to go as well as it did, or the direction that it did, and a lot of it, I think, was because she went in and sang an original song on the show. Like, I think she really had the confidence in knowing that the song that she had written was amazing, and she was going to be better served going in and singing a song of her own than going and singing somebody else's, because it wasn't going to be as authentic, I think, is what hers ended up being.
I watched every single, I was sharing with you, I watched every single America's Got Talent episode, and generally Simon Cowell discourages original songs, and she blew everybody away. In fact, go ahead and share what happened once she did go through the audition for those who haven't seen it.
Yeah, so she stepped on the stage and went through the, like, I mean, you'll just have to look it up too. I think you probably put it in the show notes or in the description, but not going to do it anywhere near the justice of you just taking 7 minutes of your night and watching this audition, because you'll cry. So grab some tissues, make sure you're comfortable in a place that you don't have to go somewhere right afterwards. Yeah, she walked on the stage, and the judges were asking her a lot of questions of like, hey, where are you from? Like, what's your name? And she starts, asked what she does for work. And she said she hasn't worked for a while because she has cancer. And her interactions with the judges in those moments really were a reflection of just the confidence and the hope that she had, not only with her faith, in Christ, but just her hope and her mindset towards life and towards her battle with cancer, and even towards just what she was going to do with the rest of her days. And she was like, you don't have to wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy, was something that she said. And she sings her song, it's called It's Okay. And it really was just like an embodiment, I think, of like her message, not only to herself, but to the world, that no matter what's going on, no matter what you're going through, like, you're so much more than the bad things that have happened to you, and that you don't have to wait for things to be perfect in order for you to be able to change the way that you think and the way that you see the world. And I think that really captured, the judges' hearts, especially Simon's, as he gave her a golden buzzer for that performance. And it went on, I think, to change a lot of people's lives all over the world.
Do you think she went on stage with the idea in mind of doing it for cancer patients, to show people that it can be done?
You know what? I don't know if she had that explicit thought. I know that she wrote that song for people that were hurting, knowing that it was going to be a blessing to them. So, even before she walked on stage, she obviously wrote that song and recorded it and everything. So she wrote that song first and foremost for herself, to remind herself that it's okay. Like, it's okay to feel lost. Like, it's okay. But also that message, is not just a message for her, but it's a message for everybody who's going through something difficult, whether it's a cancer patient or whether it's somebody who's just lost their job and they can't pay their bills and their marriage is falling apart. Like, all those different other things in our lives, that tend to make it feel like it's not okay. I think that song really embodies people's, the way that people can see the world. I think she wrote it for them.
Do you know when she wrote that?
I want to say she wrote it in 2020. Yeah, I want to say it was 2020 when she wrote that song. And I don't think it was 2019, because I think she wrote it in that year that she was getting treatments, and she was stuck at home. I mean, she was living in Long Beach with my brother Andrew during COVID in 2020. That was where she was living. So she had a lot of time indoors, as you Californians had during COVID.
Yes, we did.
You weren't allowed to go to the beach.
Well, I was stuck in my room anyway, so it was the same to me.
Yeah, for you, it didn't matter either way. Yeah, I think she wrote it that year in 2020.
I mean, that performance and everything just resonated so much with me, because I was going through cancer myself, and it was like it just uplifted me, and it gave me just a shot in the arm. And I'm a very driven person anyway, but that we all could use a shot in the arm, and that definitely gave me a shot in the arm, and just made me I was cheering for her. And then, unfortunately, I'll let you share the next part. I was just so devastated when she wasn't able to continue.
Yeah, it was yeah, her health took took a pretty significant turn, in the weeks following that audition, which which really, it's amazing that she had the strength and the fortitude to be able to stand on that stage and sing as beautifully as she did, and be able to do everything that she did that time, that night. Um, just because, her health took a turn, and she had to drop out of the show, which was very disappointing and frustrating, I think, for many people, especially her. And you think, like, she seems like, especially when you watch her on that stage, she seems like this sort of invincible person, but that was really tore her up a lot to not be able to continue on in that process. But um it was providential, I think, in some ways too. Like, she was able to bow out. She was able to form a really good friendship with Simon during that time as well, which I think probably wouldn't have happened had she stayed on the show. And also it paved the way for Dustin Tavella to be able to go on to win that show there in 2021, which I had the blessing to be able to meet him. And I mean, I think we would call each other friends at this point. Of He came into town to do a show for the Nightbirde Foundation here in the Columbus area, and it was really amazing to be able to see him live, to be able to hear his story and his experience. And he and I were joking that he owes me one anyway, because if Jane wouldn't have dropped out, he would just be the second place on America's Got Talent.
And I was mentioning to you before the interview, I mean, Dustin Develo's just absolutely fantastic, and I don't think there's any doubt that Jane would have won, because America's Got Talent, like many of the talent shows, are driven by social media, and she had a tidal wave behind her of social media that she still has. And so, yeah, I mean, but what Dustin Tavella, for those of you who don't know who he is, he won America's Got Talent that year, and he is absolutely terrific. So look him up. You could look up on YouTube Dustin Tavella AGT, and see what an amazing performer he is. But let's talk about Jane's book that she wrote, if you could.
Yeah, so it's a collection of poetry. Actually, I don't know why I don't have one handy to show you, but it'll be in the show notes or in the description. You'll be able to look it up. So it was a collection of poems that Jane had written over her time, battling cancer, and it's called Poems for the Dark. And it's a collection that our family put together of that poetry. Most of it Jane actually sort of curated herself. Excuse me. She had like a Google Doc or a Word doc, I can't remember, of all of these poems that she had already put together and kind of the order she wanted them to be in, and all of that. And then after she passed away, my wife and I went through a lot of her journals and pulled even some more poetry that she had, that it didn't make it into the document, that were written more recent months before she passed away. And really, it's 100 pages of wisdom and of beauty. And I mean, even if you don't consider yourself to be a poetry person, which I would say that I'm not a poetry person generally. I mean, I am now. I've read more poetry in the last 9 months than I have my entire life. Putting this book together. But it's a really wonderful book, and it's not only like full of hope, but it's full of honesty, and it's really raw at times, but it's really still very beautiful. And 100% of the proceeds coming from that book, obviously they benefit the Nightbirde Foundation to help women just like Jane.
I've read the book myself, and I've never read a book like that. And I've done writing throughout my life, had things published and things like that, and I couldn't even begin to write something as articulate and as as thoughtful and thought-provoking as that particular book. So I'd highly recommend to anybody to read, get a hold of this book and read it, because it's fantastic, and to particularly even more so for the cancer patient who's going through these things, because she writes a lot about that. And if you're going through that, it's through her eyes, which I was just stunned. I couldn't believe that I was affected in such a way that this book made me feel. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. It really was. And I didn't, when I started, I was like, oh boy, I'm just going to read this thing, just to say I read it. And then I started reading it and I was like, wow, this is really amazing. It's fantastic. So
Yeah, it is really, it's a great book. And I'm not just saying that because it's my sister, because I'd never just give Jane, compliments just for compliments' sake. Neither did she. Wouldn't do that. She did the same thing for me. Like if something I did was good, she'd let me know. If something I did was bad, she would also let me know. So I tend to return the favor whenever I could.
and that's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, she wasn't blowing smoke, um, you know, at me ever. She was very honest about things, and yeah, me as well. Like I and it's probably somewhat to a fault. I probably could have been a little more encouraging here, there, and everywhere, but
You're being a brother, though.
who else is gonna keep that head from growing too big? Like
Yeah.
somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, that's like the relationship I have with my younger daughter, who just had our granddaughter. And growing up, I would go to I went to every single. She was in gymnastics from the age of 3 up until her freshman year in high school, and I went to every meet that she was in. And then she got into high school, she became a tennis player, and I went to every meet there as well. And so, our relationship was, you know, she would go to her mother first, and her mother would say, "Oh, you did absolutely great, fantastic, everything was amazing." And then she'd go to me and she'd say, "Okay, Dad, how did I really do?" Because I would tell her, that's just the way I am. I'm not gonna, you
Yeah.
know, I just tell her the way it is. And I think you're the same way.
Oh, totally. You almost have to. You know.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's where the true bond is in a relationship, is when you can be brutally honest, and that person, and it goes both ways, and that's what makes a wonderful relationship.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I mean, I've had so much fun learning more and more, because that audition is, I still look at it, and it's still my favorite audition ever on America's Got Talent. And I just like to thank you for the time that you spent with me, and meeting with you in person in Scranton, and I hope to see you again. And hopefully we can do some things down the road to help our causes, because our causes are the same, you know and it's just a matter of coming together and finding things that work and that could help people. So Mitch, I am so honored and so thankful, and I wish you nothing but success with your foundation. Do you have a final thought that you'd like to leave everyone?
I would say it was very similar to kind of what we were talking about before we got on the call. So the pre-interview that we probably should have just recorded because we had such good conversation. Everybody else should have been in on it. But I think just the power of hope cannot be understated, or overstated. It is understated. It cannot be overstated. Yeah, the power of hope cannot be overstated. I think that the ability for us to be able to have the right framework to walk through suffering and to walk through tragedy is really important, because suffering doesn't just make you more. Suffering by itself doesn't make you into a better person. It doesn't make you resilient. It doesn't make you any of those things. It's suffering plus the right framework and attitude and mindset that goes along with it. Because we've all seen and experienced and been friends with or close with people that have suffered and have had the wrong mindset, or they suffer sort of in a vacuum, and that suffering turns them into bitter, angry, frustrated, and people that we don't want to be around, and they don't want to be around themselves, and so it's just the suffering itself is not the thing that creates, resilient, hopeful people. It's suffering plus the right mindset, the right attitude, and the right framework. And I think Jane's faith, her being a Christian, I think gave her a really good framework, from a eternal perspective of, the circumstances and the things around her. She knew that they were fleeting, regardless of whether she would live another 50 years or whether she went home to be with the Lord. Like, that freed her up from not allowing her circumstances to be the defining force and the defining factor for her. And I think there's a lot of lessons that we can learn, that even if that's not your faith, us being able to have the right framework and mindset walking into our suffering and through our suffering, I think is really important, because the suffering itself is not going to change you. It's going to destroy you, honestly. But the ability for us to have hope in the midst of suffering, I think, is really the key point. And Jane found that hope in Christ. And so I think that just that hope element, the hope quotient, if you will, I think is important to keep in mind. And at the end of the day, it's like what Jane said, you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy. And there's a lot of people out there, myself included at times, that tend to view ourselves as the victim of circumstances, as opposed to not to be a cliche, but like the victor, the victor over our circumstances and through our circumstances. And that's a big lesson that I learned through Jane's journey, through my own journey. And hopefully I can pass that on to my kids and to as many people as I can.
Just one last question. Did she pre-think that thought about being happy? Was it something?
I've never heard her say that a day in my life. And I've never heard her say it after that. I think it was a legitimate moment of inspiration on that stage. I'm seriously, I'd never heard. I'm not saying she didn't have that frame. Obviously the framework was there and she believed it and lived it and all those things. So I'm not saying she was being fake on the stage. Don't hear me say that. But I've never heard her say those 17 words, or the clunkiest quote of all time is what I say it. Because it's beautiful, but it's also very hard to print on a t-shirt.
Yeah. All I have to say is this: that quote is one of my all-time favorites. It really is. I mean, because it's just so raw and so beautiful and so indicative of a cancer journey. So thank you so much, Mitch. It's been an honor and a pleasure and a true blessing. So yeah, thank you so much. And I'd like to thank everybody here for joining us at To Be Your Own Hero. And I usually quote from a book, but I just want to say this, that we live in such a divisive world. There's just chaos all around us, all around the world. Why can't we just be nice to people? Be nice to your family. Love your family. Be good to the people that you're friends with. And let's start with that, and let's help bring this world back together and make it a happier place, because that's the way it should be. God did not make this world for people to hate each other. He made it for people to love each other. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Mitch, it's been awesome. Thank you for joining us. at To Be Your Own Hero. Please subscribe, like, make a comment in the comment section, and we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.